Good morning. This month's worship theme across Unitarian Universalism is story. Thus, I am talking to you today about a poet who's told the story of humanity from the perspective of India. Our hearts especially are with India these recent weeks as the COVID-19 virus is expanding in that country, even as it's diminishing here. We must realize that we are all one humanity fighting this plague together. Tagore was born in 1861 and lived till 1941. He was a Nobel laureate for literature in 1913 and one of modern England's greatest poets, and the composer of India's independent national anthem. He was raised in the area of India known as Bengal, which is now Bangladesh, and he also wrote their national anthem. And who'd think that a national anthem would be appropriate for Mother's Day? But instead of the usual bombastic pride that national anthems often contain, his national anthem talks about loving the natural beauty of his land and compares it to his mother. Here are his words. My Bengal of gold, I love you. Forever your skies, your air set my heart in tune as if it were a flute. In spring, O mother mine, the fragrance from your mango groves make me wild with joy. Ah, what a thrill. In autumn, O mother of mine, in the full-blossomed paddy fields I have seen spread all over sweet smiles. Ah, what a beauty, what shades, what an affection, and what a tenderness. What a quilt you have spread at the feet of the banyan trees and along the banks of rivers. O mother mine, words from your lips are like nectar to my ears. What a thrill. If sadness, O mother mine, casts the gloom in your face, my eyes are filled with tears. It seems ironic to me that two countries that are divided because of religion, Hinduism in India and Islam in Bangladesh, both chose the poetry of a man, and that they should unite in spite of their religious differences. Tagore burst upon the international stage as a poet in 1912. He published a translation of his devotional poem, Gitanjali. It was an epic poem about waiting for God, but also talked about humans' need to give to one another. God is truly met in nature and humanity. Leave this chanting and singing and telling of beads. Whom dost thou worship in the lonely dark corner of a temple with doors all shut? Open thine eyes and see thy God is not before thee. He is there where the tiller is tilling the hard ground, where the pathmaker is breaking stones. He is with them in sun and shower, and his garment is covered with dust. Put off thy holy mantle, and even like him come down to the dusty soil. Deliverance? Where is your deliverance to be found? Our Master himself has joyfully taken upon him the bonds of creation. He is bound with us forever. Come out of thy meditations and leave aside thy flowers and incense. What harm is there if thy clothes become tattered and stained? Beat him and stand by him in toil and the sweat of thy brow. For Tagore, devotion to God was expressed in service to humans. This is my prayer to thee, Lord. Strike at the root of poverty in my heart. Give me the strength lightly to bear my joys and sorrows. Give me the strength to make my love fruitful service. Give me the strength to never disown the poor or bend my trifles. And give me the strength to surrender my strength to thy will with love. His devotion stemmed from his religious belief. He was a member of the Brahmo Samaj, a reformed movement within Hinduism, which emphasized the oneness of God or Brahman. The fundamental principles of the Brahmo Samaj, founded by Raja Ram Mohan Roy in 1828, are: there is only one God, who is the Creator, the Savior of this world. He is Spirit, infinite in power, wisdom, love, justice, holiness, omnipresent, eternal, and blissful. 2. The human soul is immortal and capable of infinite progress, and responsible to God for all doings. Man's happiness in this and the next world consists in worshiping God in spirit and in truth. And 4, loving God, holding communion with God, and carrying out God's will in all concerns of life constitute true worship. And 5, no object that is created is to be worshipped as God, and God alone is to be considered infallible. To this, Raja Roy added, the true way of serving God is to do good to humanity. Since no one person is considered to be infallible, the Brahmos hold all great religious leaders in the world in respect, and believe that the truth is to be gleaned from all scriptures of the world. To that extent, the Brahmo religion is truly eclectic and universalist in nature. It is dogmatically undogmatic. Sounds like it has quite a bit in common with Unitarian Universalism. And because they had that in common, it was one of the founding members of the International Association for Religious Freedom. The Unitarians were another founding member in 1900. They became part of this interfaith organization that was named at first the International Council of Unitarian and Other Religious Thinkers and Workers, now known as the International Association of Religious Freedom, with a goal was nothing less than the federation among the nations, brotherhood of humankind, and peace to the world. Our connections with this movement are old and deep. Beginning in the 1820s and continuing for a century, American and British Unitarians had missions to Calcutta, Madras, and the Khasi Hills of India. The Reverend Dr. Spencer Levin described the missions as one of encounter and response, documented it extensively. Key players included the father of modern India, Rammohan Roy. Roy, who founded the Brahmo Samaj, was much influenced by Western thought, especially Christianity. He was one of the first Hindus to visit Europe. Prior to his departure to Europe, where he went to spread his philosophy, he asked Rabindranath Tagore to continue his work in his absence. Rabindranath Tagore is the father of Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore was a poet, but he was also a political leader. A supreme symbol of India's culture and spirit, Tagore was a contemporary of the other colossus of the 19th century India, Mahatma Gandhi. Tagore and Gandhi were great admirers of each other, despite their differences in matters of politics and socialist reform. It was Tagore who first called Gandhi the Mahatma. Gandhi, in turn, called Tagore the Great Sentinel. In October 1921, Tagore published his first major essay on Gandhi and non-cooperation, called The Truth, in which he argued the truth was both of the head and the heart. While Gandhi stressed inner truth and love, he was fostering blind, unquestioning obedience to the message of chakra, the spinning wheel, Gandhi's symbol of India's self-reliance. But Tagore wanted Indian economists and leaders to fully investigate whether this made any economic sense. Tagore had his doubts and resented that all were told to simply spin and weave. Gandhi stressed the need for Indian self-sufficiency in every sphere of life, while Tagore saw the need for international cooperation and sharing. In the modern age, the poet insisted India must learn from abroad, for example, in science, as well as look inward. And Tagore discussed religion with the greatest minds of the day. Listen to this excerpt from our conversation with none other than Einstein. Einstein said, "I cannot prove it scientifically that truth must be conceived as a truth that is valid and independent of humanity, but I believe it firmly. I believe, for instance, that the Pythagorean theorem in geometry states something that is approximately true, independent of the existence of man." Tagore replies with, "Truth, which is one with universal being, must essentially be human. At least truth, which is described as scientific, can only be reached through the process of logic. In other words, an organ of thoughts which is human." Einstein, speaking of the West, said, "Our natural point of view in regard to the existence of truth from a part of humanity cannot be explained or proved, but is a belief which nobody can lack." Tagore says, if there is a truth which has no sensual or rational relationship to the human mind, it will ever remain nothing so long as we remain human. Einstein, "Then I am more religious than you." Tagore said, "My religion is the reconciliation of the universal human spirit in my own individual being." Now, Einstein in this conversation was reflecting years of Western thought, the Platonic ideal that there exists something ideal beyond what humans can conceive. Even though Einstein lived in what he could actually perceive. In another conversation, Einstein was asked if he believed in God, and he said he believed in the God of Spinoza. And Spinoza was a 17th century Jewish Dutch philosopher whose theology was very naturalistic, rooted in humanity, and very close to Tagore's. Tagore often refers to the universal spirit as God. For Einstein, God in this conversation would have had a reality outside of human existence. Tagore would argue that since any knowledge of God can only be understood through human perceptions, one cannot separate God from humanity. He wrote, "The idea that humanity has in its being is the wonder of all wonders. He has felt the depths of his life, which appears imperfect, is the manifestation of the perfect. Just as a man who has an ear for music realizes the perfection of a song, while in fact he is only listening to a succession of notes." And that's something that's very tricky. We listened to that beautiful meditative piece that Judy played earlier. And you can analyze that, and you can figure out the times, and you can figure out the notes and where they should be placed and how to play them on a mechanical device like a piano. And all that scientific analysis somehow adds up to something more when it's brought together into a song that is the human experience. And I think that speaks to Tagore's idea of God and spirituality. There's the stuff that we can analyze, and we live that. And only through living that can we experience something transcendent that is more, but also present in the most minute thing that we do. Tagore believed that this process is never ending, and the truth can never be finalized in a theology or a sect. To this end, he wrote a poem called False Religion. He thought that religion, like poetry, is not a mere idea, it's an expression. And that the self-expression of God is endless in variety of creation, and our attitude towards the infinite must also have an expression, a variety of individuality, ceaseless and unending. Those sects which jealously build their boundaries with too rigid of creeds, excluding all spontaneous movement of living spirit, they may hoard their theology, but they kill religion. His poem, False Religion. Those who in the name of faith embrace illusion kill and are killed. Even the atheist gets God's blessings, does not boast of his religion. With reverence, he lights the lamp of reason and pays his homage not to scriptures, but to the good in man. The bigot insults his own religion when he slays a man of another faith. Conduct he judges not in the light of reason. In the temple he raises their blood-stained banner and worships the devil in the name of God. O Lord, breaking false religion, save the blind. Break, O break, the altar that is drowned in blood. Let your thunder strike into the prison of false religion, and bring to this unhappy land the light of knowledge. Now some will say that Unitarian Universalists have no faith, including many Unitarian Universalists. But I argue that those of you who believe your own brand of Christianity, Buddhism, scientific naturalism, humanism, all these different things, and you hold open the door of doubt, which allows you to accept new knowledge and new experiences, have a greater faith than those who claim they know it all. Because we do not pretend to know it all. We have a faith that declares we do not know for sure. A faith that embraces believers and non-believers. We do not cling to answers and defend them to death. We understand that each answer raises new questions, and we continue our search, having faith that life is worthwhile, that the universe is bigger than our understanding, and none of us have the right to kill one another, for it may be that person who can increase our understanding. The world needs our faith, no matter how diffuse and broad and incomprehensible it is. For the things that we know for certain are no longer faith. We need to build a religious community that welcomes the religious thought of all people and build a community for religious freedom. As long as it adheres to these principles, where we do not teach our children to hate or distrust those who differ from us. And we will teach ourselves to expand our understanding of humanity. We will recognize humanity as precious and work to protect individuals. For each person is an atom in a molecule of existence, necessary for the reality that is infinite. The holy is inside each of us. And let us fulfill that connection with each other and others that wait for us outside of this congregation. May we tell a story of religion that embraces hope and humanity. May we bless and be blessed.